times, he has had a timing perfect, winning the Indianapolis 500s. But think about this, he could be a 5-time champion, except for 36 hundredths of a second. Back in 2003, he was second by less than 30 hundredths. Last year, 6 hundredths of a second. That's why today, he knows that every pit stop, every lap, every second matters.
Lindsay, thank you, and a brief moment of drama again on the grid. That's Alex Tagliani driving the third A.J. Foyt racing entry that has not fired and moved away from the starting grid. We'll keep our eyes on that story as the rest of the field begins the 3 parade and 1 pace laps before the green flag waves. And hello from inside the pagoda, the electric moment as we get ready to start this great Indianapolis 500-mile race, joined by the 1998 winner Eddie Cheever, 2-time runner-up Scott Goodyear, 2 men who know all about what it's like to roar into turn 1 at the start and to race for the win here. This race this year could be a little different. The last several have been terrific, but the changes to the cars that were just documented for you might make things look a bit different.
And Alan, the drivers are saying that these cars are a little tricky to drive. So I think what we're going to see today is that they're going to try and get past the car in front by drafting. And to do that, they got to get a little closer than previous years. I think it's going to be very confrontational going into the turns because drivers are going to have to work harder inside the cockpit, Eddie, to make that pass successful.
And that confrontation is going to be done right at the last moment. They can't start these passes early because the cars will not allow them to do that. So you're going to see a lot of last-minute dive bombing. And having driven in here, there's nothing I want less than have somebody trying to pass me in those last 100 feet turning into a corner.
So the end of each one of these straightaways, twice a lap for 200 laps. An opportunity for some drama.
I can't get my lap back. Restart it fast.
The question for Tagliani is not that the engine won't start, it's that he can't get it into gear. That's the report up from pit lane. So again, we continue to monitor the status of the 48 car. Leading the field, the Honda 2-seat Indycar, driven by none other than Mario Andretti, and you can enter at shophonda.com for a chance to start a Verizon IndyCar Series race in that machine. In the seat occupied today by funny man Adam Carolla. I wonder if he's fired off any jokes to keep Mario laughing on these parade laps. To pit road and Jan Beekes.
And now consider Juan Pablo Montoya as the field flashes by for the first time, bringing it up to speed. Juan Pablo has a lot more work to do than his Penske teammates. He qualified only 15th. And then on Carburation Day, the final practice, they spent 25 minutes of the session trying to solve an engine problem. So he didn't really have time to get the aerodynamic trim or the balance the way he likes it. So they know they have a long way to go, and he has a car that he doesn't know how will perform in traffic. Alan?
Montoya is certainly one to keep an eye on, Jan, from the middle of this 33-car field. And at the front of the field, leading it to the green, the Chevrolet Corvette Z06 Supercar, the Indianapolis 500 pace car for 2015. For more information, you can go to Chevy.com/Corvette. And the man behind the wheel, somebody who knows all about leading laps here, 5-time Brickyard 400 winner, Jeff Gordon.
You think he knows his way around here?
What a thrill for him. He said he always wanted to come and run Indy cars at this racetrack. Very successful in the stock cars. What a thrill this must be for him.
We have onboard cameras in more than a third of the field for this race. Ryan Briscoe, subbing for James Hinchcliffe, has our Lucas Oil on board. And Takuma Sato has a Honda on board on his A.J. Foyt machine. James Jakes carrying the MediaTek on board, as well as our biotelemetry. And Graham Rahal has the Steak and Shake onboard camera. Last year's winner, Ryan Hunter-Reay, with the AutoNation on board. And we just talked about Juan Pablo Montoya. He's got the Verizon on board. He's certainly one of the drivers to keep an eye on today. Charlie Kimball has the Levemere Flex Touch on board. And hometowner Ed Carpenter with the Firestone on board. Marco Andretti, the third-generation driver with a Mutual of Omaha on board. And the 3-time winner trying to become 4, enjoying that rarest of clubs, Elio Castroneves with a Chevy on board. Tony Kanaan has the NTT Data on board, the 2013 winner, starting inside row number 2. And on the pole, Scott Dixon, carrying a Verizon on board today. He will lead the field to the green flag. Tagliani's been refired and driven away, but that is coming from the back of Connor Daly's machine, and that doesn't look good.
And he's going particularly slow.
In case there's a fire, the bottle's coming towards you.
What a shame for him, a local driver. There you can see, obviously, there must be some leak, a little bit of a fire in the back of that car. Connor from Noblesville, Indiana, not far from here, one of the 2 local drivers that are in this event. Brian Clausen being the other. See, the spotter just told him that he had a fire in the back, so he pulled off into the access lane. What a shame for that young American driver.
Very sad to see that. He'd had a great month till now. I don't think they'll be able to repair that and get him back in the race, Scott.
Well, as you know, a lot of times with any heat or flames, Eddie, a lot of times some damage to the car, maybe even some wiring harness, so that's going to be very difficult for him. He's done a great job all month. A lot of local support. His dad, Derek, had raced Formula 1 in Indycar, so shame for that.
Looking for Spanish language commentary of this Indianapolis 500, find it by activating the SAP button on your television, presented of course by ESPN Deportes. So a 2.5-mile racetrack. To get 500 miles, you will circle this place 200 laps. They'll stop every 29 to 32 laps for fuel. Despite a dire forecast for rain about a week ago, it is perfect today, and the threat of rain isn't expected to reach here until late night tonight, well after the race is over. And atop the flag stand, ready to wave this field off, racer, as well as Hollywood star Patrick Dempsey, who will wave this green flag in just one more lap.
He was in the booth visiting with us just a little while ago. He's headed to Le Mans after this event, heads there next week and be racing in Le Mans for the 24-hour here in 2 weeks' time.
And while the field forms up for the start, just a moment to say hello, salute, and welcome all of our U.S. servicemen and women stationed around the world and their families watching today's Indianapolis 500 via the Armed Forces Network, including the folks that you saw earlier during the salute at Combined Joint Task Force operation in the Middle East. Thank you so much for your service in defending our freedom. So this moment, a half a lap from the green, is like what?
You are totally focused on one thing. I have to get past that first corner, so there's nothing else in your mind other than that.
The traditional 11 rows of 3, -1. And the massive crowd that has filed in to see this 99th running of the Indianapolis 500. The field is coming to the green. The sights and sounds of the start of Indianapolis are yours.
Get ready, stay with them here. Green.
Oh, a crash! Contact back in the field.
Sage Karam.
The young driver from Nazareth, Pennsylvania, who many folks, including me, thought had a terrific car and an opportunity to maybe contend for the win, is crashed in the first corner. Ryan Briscoe also turned around in the stack-up.
It is so difficult in that first corner. You can't really see where you're going because there's a lot of turbulence in front of you. You always have to react to the cars around you. It is terrible to see the drivers after a whole 2 weeks of trying to practice to get caught up in a first corner accident like that. And Sage had done such a great job.
Now, if you watch what's going on here, the number 8 car of Sage Karam, you're going to see him in the middle of the track. He's doing the right thing, but on the outside's the 14 of Takuma Sato. Now, Sage Karam does not expect him to be on the outside, so he's trying to give some room to the 28 of Ryan Hunter-Reay that was on the inside of Sage Karam, and he ended up taking both of them out. Now, that, like I said, is not a fault of the yellow car, Sage Karam. He does not expect the 14 of ABC's car, Takuma Sato, to be there.
Yellow, outside, outside.
See, Briscoe got hit by James Davison in the 19 car as he was slowing down. Here's Sato's on board.
That's just a bad bet to be passing a car in the first corner on the outside because the room just keeps diminishing.
You know, we always talk about that. You cannot win the Indy 500 in the first turn on the first lap, but you sure can lose it, and that's exactly what happened today.
So Briscoe's been refired and kept going. You saw Karam out of his car, and in that last replay from Sato's onboard, you saw one of the pieces of the left front suspension damaged on the 14 machine. So just as happens a lot in the early laps of this race, trouble in the opening corners. Sato, Karam, Briscoe involved. Yellow out early at Indy. Back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the 99th Indianapolis 500-mile race under caution before they've even finished a mile and a half. As trouble on the start between turns 1 and 2 has claimed a list of cars, in addition to a couple who had troubles before the race even began. Here's the incident.
Inside, absolutely. You can see the ABC car of Takuma Sato trying to go around the outside. And Eddie, you said when we were at commercial, in the gray, somewhere you just don't want to be, especially on the first lap of the race. I mean,
he's running out of space here already. There's no place, Scott, for him to go. That is a result of a very bad qualifying session. He carried that through to the race, and he tried to make up ground too early. And now the 14 car is out.
and he's taken out one of the, I thought was a great contender, the number 8 of Sage Karam, young American that's 20 years old from Nazareth, Pennsylvania. You can see the impact there. I mean, everybody in this whole paddock was talking about Sage as a race contender.
So Tagliani with the early troubles that you heard about on the pace laps. Connor Daly with his problems that has taken his car out of the race already. Tagliani has continued. And then the crash with Karam and Sato. They've repaired Sato's car, sent him back onto the racetrack, though he is now 2 laps down to the race leaders. A lot of cleanup still to be done. The restart coming up from Indianapolis in a moment. Cleanup just about complete from the first corner accident here in the Indianapolis 500. Our telecast presented by Firestone. We're going back racing in one more lap. We're also going back racing next weekend here on ABC with this Verizon Indycar Series. A doubleheader for you both Saturday and Sunday afternoon at Belle Isle in Detroit. The duel in Detroit, Saturday and Sunday, 3:30 Eastern on ABC. Updates on some of those who had early problems. Jan?
Yes, Connor Daly, as you saw, had a fire underneath his car before the green ever took place. The team said it was related to the exhaust system getting hot, and that is what caused the fire. So unfortunately, he couldn't get it back to effect repairs and start that fire. Alan?
Heartbreaking. So out of the Indianapolis 500 before the green flag, and now another driver out of the 500 before completing 2 corners. That would be Sage Karam. Quick reminder, download the IndyCar 15 mobile app and get live streams from in-car cameras and more from Verizon. The Verizon camera today on board the race leader, Scott Dixon's car, as he comes out for the restart. They have just waved off the start. Contact with someone that has ripped that fender guard off his right rear tire.
That's a big piece of bodywork. You have to come in and take that off. There is no way you could continue running without that.
Drive through.
And Simona Di Silvestro following him down the pit lane, but they've been instructed to go through. Benefit, because if it falls off, they'll have to send somebody out to clean it up, and he'll get time to make repairs. If it doesn't fall off, they're going to send this race back green.
If I was the car behind him, I'd keep some safe distance. That's a very big piece of bodywork.
Well, he's probably been have Sage Karam more on Sage. He's just been released from the medical center. And Sage, first of all, you okay?
Yeah, all good. It's just a soft hit, you know, just kind of got up in the wall and just kind of rode it a little bit, but yeah, tough break.
What happened there? Did you know that Sato was on your outside?
I knew going into turn one he had a run, but I didn't think he was dumb enough to go actually on the outside. You know, me and Hunter-Reay, we're side by side, which is pretty much protocol, you know, around here going into turn one, at least be too wide. We're racing each other hard and racing each other clean. And Sato, you know, he's a veteran in the series, a little bit better than that, and decides to make it 3 wide and ruins a lot of guys' races. The guy needs to wake up a little bit.
Obviously a very frustrated Sage Karam. Alan?
And rightfully so, after his entire month's preparations are out the window in the first couple of corners.
And that piece did fall off.
Yeah. And the yellow extended, and here come Montoya. And the driver, I think, was involved in the contact with him, Simona Di Silvestro, who was following Montoya down the pit lane. If you look close.
Now, Scott, this is not a piece. This is not a piece you can run without, can you?
And this is something that these teams train for. They'll have a spare wing complete, as you can see it, not only with the wing, but also what they call those rear bumper guards, which is the piece that was dangling around the back of the car, which then fell off. Those are already preset to the settings that needs to be done that the team was running on before.
We good? All right, let's go. Good job.
Oh.
The servicemen, after changing the front wing on Simona's car.
So it looks like they both got out without losing a lap.
Very strange beginning to this race, I will say. And it's a little bit strange, Alan, because what ends up happening is that you are mentally prepared to start this race and get yourself into a rhythm. And now we've had this situation where we've not really got up to speed and gotten into that rhythm. And you know what that's like, Eddie. It sort of throws you off just a little bit.
But at the same time, they're also going to be single file instead of 3 wide.
I think it does. I think the start on a single file is a lot easier, obviously, than 3 in a row.
So still cleaning some things up. We'll come back for the restart after this from your ABC station from the Indianapolis 500.
The Indianapolis 500 telecast, presented by Firestone, the official tire of the Verizon Indycar Series. Honda. Start something special with a great deal on a Honda. Now at your Honda dealer. And Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Getting ready to go green flag racing, or attempt to anyway, here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The turn 1 crash, then a crash under caution, has extended this yellow for all, and they've just waved off the start again. So we're going to be another lap under yellow before we go green.
Nobody at this point has any idea what sort of a car they have, Alan, because the track is hotter than it was the last time they ran it on Carburation Day, so I suspect they're getting very frustrated.
All right, so let's the waving off of the green gives us the opportunity to show you what we found that happened between Juan Pablo Montoya and Simona Di Silvestro.
Now this is under yellow, so under yellow your only job is to keep the pace. Obviously Montoya is trying to slow down to not hit the car in front of him, and Simona just, I guess, was not paying attention, maybe from a lack of experience, or she was looking at her dials and she just hit the side of his car.
And there goes the piece from Juan Pablo Montoya's car, and the former winner of this race has been on pit lane several times under this yellow, Jan.
Yes, and you saw the first time as they changed the whole rear section of the bodywork. The second time was simply to top up on fuel. Obviously, if you've lost track position, you're near the back of the pack, why not take on fuel and run a different fuel strategy? They have not lost a lap. They don't feel there's any other damage to the car other than the bodywork, so Juan Pablo Montoya is good to go.
And this is a driver we want to follow. When Montoya is last in the field at Indianapolis 500, he's a guy you want to keep your eyes on.
So we'll try this again, but instead of being 3 abreast at the start, they'll be single file with Scott Dixon leading the 10th Indianapolis 500 that he's led, tying in with his teammate Tony Kanaan for most among active drivers. And here we go.
Green.
Pagano on power for second.
A lot of cars running 2 abreast.
So it's Dixon, Power, Pagano, Kanaan, and Justin Wilson running in 5th. For second place, Simon Pagano trying to pass his Penske teammate Will Power again.
And he completes it perfectly. He tried that going into 1, Scott, a lap earlier, and both of them were running side by side the whole way around.
Something Roger Penske, the team owner, probably doesn't want to see both his team cars doing that on the very first lap. A lot of dicing going on in the back section, guys trying to make up some team. The 2 ABC cars that you can see, Takuma Sato, who was involved in that first lap incident, and his teammates following right behind him, Jack Hawksworth.
And Montoya is right behind, and he has to start passing cars.
Someone's in a hurry.
That was Tristan Vautier, who was in that 18 car for this race. Did not qualify it. The scheduled driver in that car, Carlos Huertas, was declared medically ineligible with an inner ear problem. So Vautier, who qualified the other Dale Coyne racing machine, the 19 car, got out of his European racing commitment for the weekend and came back to compete in the 500.
Now what Dixon needs right now is for Kanaan to pass Pagano. If he passes Pagano, the 2 of them can work together and put some distance, Scott, between the group that's following him. Today's going to be all about drafting strategy.
And Dixon and Kanaan are teammates on Target Chip Ganassi Racing. The second car in line that you see with Simon Pagano is for Team Penske. The 4th car in line is also a Penske machine. Look at that throttle trace right there. That is great because he's behind traffic in front of him. which means he's confident with the feeling of his car. Watch the gear ratio here. You'll probably see him click 6. There he goes. So close to the car in front to complete that pass. He might get 2. Nope.
Now that was perfect driving. He passed it. Now he's going to put Pagenaud in a little bit of a problem and create some distance between Dixon and the two of them.
Kanaan set fast lap of the race on that last circuit, 223.9 miles an hour all the way around.
Scott, he was going so fast in that tow when he passed Pagenaud, he almost ran into the back of Dixon. So he had to take his foot off, and when he did that, he created a problem for Pagenaud.
Which is great to see, because these guys have wondered how these cars are going to be working in the draft. Now that we see with 2 cars in front, you can really get a great tow.
But Scott, that comes back to what you were talking about just before the start of the race, how the draft is kicking in its strongest late down the straightaway this year compared to last.
Well, Alan, did you see how close he got to the car in front of him? I mean, previously, we'd give ourselves a little bit more room, have a little bit more safety factor. The guys have all been saying, I can't do that, so they're just hoping they don't miss time and end up clipping their wing to the car in front.
If there's a way, they will find it.
So Dixon, Kanaan, Pagenaud with now power back to 4th place. Juan Pablo Montoya restarted in 30th position, and he's picked up 5 spots already, some of them in reasonably aggressive and opportunistic fashion. Watch this.
Look at all these cars. This place is not that wide. You want to stay off the green stuff.
Not much traction on the grass.
Chip Ganassi must be smiling right now. He has both of his cars in the lead, and Kanaan is now past Dixon. And Dixon's...
Yeah, you can see he doesn't have the speed mid-turn, so something's changed on his car. Everybody has talked about these new cars this year, that the bullseye spot, the sweet spot as they call it, to make the car handle is smaller, meaning that if the temperature changes a little bit or your handling goes off, tire pressures change, sometimes you can throw the handling off on how your car gets around the corner. A little less grip, maybe that's what he's got.
So Tony Kanaan, hugely popular among this crowd here at Indianapolis, is the 2nd leader of the race, Doc.
Yeah, in Friday's Carb Day final practice, TK was not happy. Tony Kanaan told his team, I am not happy. I can't pull up on people. I can't pass people. He begged them to change the gear on Sunday morning. They changed the gears this morning and said, you give me gear and I will give you the lead. I will pass people. And now he's under attack by his teammate.
I don't think that's so much of an attack. That's a good strategy. If Dixon has a run on him, Kanaan should let him go by, because now Kanaan can draft on Dixon. And if they do it in a methodical manner, they can put distance between them and the rest of the field.
I'm not so sure that Pagenaud might not gobble him up first, because he seems like he's getting a bit of a run here. Let's watch.
Pagenaud's going to be too close to him in the corner.
While we watch this, we check in Pagenaud's pit with Rick.
Well, Doc was just talking. Pagenaud loved his car on Carb Day. He said, I could pass everybody out there. He was playing with downforce and figured he had it exactly where he wanted to start the race. Now, important to point out, while he was on the tack a few minutes ago, they came on the radio and said what they call fuel map 4. In other words, go to a different fuel position where you're not burning as much. So if he doesn't want to get too far away from the leader, but at this point he's content to ride around not battling for the lead.
Scott, did you see how much Kanaan closed on Dixon in half a lap?
And for the race lead, Kanaan goes back around.
Kanaan is the guy who has the fastest car right now. And he's using Dixon as a post.
This is usually a segment of the race where you start to get the feeling of the handling of your car. You use some of those cockpit adjustments as the drivers have to change the handling characteristics of the car. You're radioing back to the team to tell them what the car is doing, and you can see Scott Dixon at work on the left-hand side there. Look at his steering wheel. Remember, no power steering, no power brakes in these cars, so he's battling this, very physical inside the cockpit, but he'll be relaying information back to the team, telling them what the car is doing so they can make some wing adjustments or tire pressure changes during the first pit stop.
One thing we have not mentioned is Pagenaud might be in the fuel-conserving mode. So if he can make these 2 cars ahead of him create a good space for him and he can run with less throttle, he will be putting gas in the bank, so to speak, so he can use it later.
It's one of the common strategies in today's modern IndyCar Series racing. Go as fast as you can, but use as little fuel as you can. Why? Because it's so difficult to gain track position. The less time you're sitting still in your pit box, i.e. the less fuel you need to take, the more cars you can pass on the pit road.
Without doing anything. And it all comes down to the great mechanics you have in the pits. And they are some of the best here.
A second on pit lane at these speeds is 110 yards of racetrack.
Making up 110 yards in one lap is a hard job.
So we've been following this drafting duel for the lead between the Ganassi teammates, Kanaan and Dixon, with Penske teammates Pagenaud and Power right behind them. There's Justin Wilson in the 25 driving for Andretti Autosport, and here's Helio Castroneves running in 6th, Doc.
And prior to climbing in the car, Helio Castroneves was bobbing and weaving and dancing like a heavyweight boxer. That's what he's doing here early in the race. You're going to save your energy, save your car, stay out of trouble, stay in contact with the leaders, but don't get up there and punish your equipment until it is time to go. That's how you win a 4th Indianapolis 500. You take care of everything and make sure you stay out of trouble until it is time to move. Alan.
All right, Doc. Castroneves trying to join that illustrious club of 4-time winners of this great race.
And it sounds like he's taken a page out of Rick Mears' playbook. That's what Rick Mears would do. He would qualify way up front, kind of fade in the first bit of the race, but he got faster and faster, Scott, from the middle of the race to the end. And Castroneves knows where all the little problems that you will encounter. He's in the 500, so he's obviously just trying to learn and save as much of his car as he can.
So third lead change of the race between two drivers, Tony Kanaan and his teammate Scott Dixon, the pole sitter and 2008 winner of this race, trying to take home another baby board. The early stages of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. The 99th edition, our telecast today presented by Firestone on a spectacular 82-degree day here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The early laps, a back and forth affair between Ganassi Racing teammates Scott Dixon and Tony Kanaan. They have been the only two leaders of the race, and they've swapped the top spot now 4 times between them. Dixon in the red, Kanaan in the blue, and the third place car in the frame is Penske's Simon Pagenaud. Showed you before the race started our biotelemetry that James Jakes was going to be carrying on board for us today. For way of reference, the average heart rate for a sprinter in that 170 to 185 beats per minute, and Dr. Jerry Punch is watching the data come in from Jake's car.
Yeah, James Jakes talking about the fact that he is an incredible fitness fanatic, and he said he would see 180, 185 or so in the car. And the concern was if it goes over 185 for more than a few laps, it is exhausting for a driver, although he has seen upwards of 200 beats per minute. Right now, Jake's able to make a couple spots on the racetrack, and normally when a driver settles in after the first 25 or 30 laps, the heart rate can come down because they're in a comfort zone, but it will go back up, we expect, when he has to make his first pit stop in 4 or 5 laps.
That'll be interesting to see his heart rate when a pit stop.
You know, it's amazing. We talk about this all the time, Eddie. I mean, this is something that you're doing out here on the racetrack for 2.5 hours. It's not like you go out and do a shift on a hockey rink and then you come back in and get a time to relax. So this is something drivers have to be in shape with. And all the young drivers that I talk to, I explain to them that fitness is one of the most important things. And if you want to see some information about this, Bobby Rahal has put some stuff out there. The website is called Safe as Fast. If you want to understand about training and about driving, he's done a great job to try and help rookies. It's really cool.
I always thought that training was a great idea because it would help you survive an accident. The better shape you're in, the better chance you had of surviving an accident. And the second thing was, if you're panting, you couldn't focus. If you're breathing too hard, you just cannot focus.
Well, as we ride along here with Tony Kanaan, when you think about it, and all these guys, including Tony, has done triathletes, he is a great driver and a great specimen for an athlete, obviously. But if you are starting to get tired inside the car, that means you're starting to go slower. Teams spend hundreds of thousands of dollars just trying to look for a tenth of a second. You can't be the weak link in the chain there.
I totally agree.
It was fun watching Kanaan hold his head up on the couch. He doesn't sports science.
He doesn't really have a neck. His head just rests on his shoulders.
We talked about Marco Andretti and the incredible record he has here at Indianapolis as far as consistently being in the hunt for the win. Our Honda telemetry shows Marco is up to the 7th position after taking the green flag back there, right about where he started back into the 8th spot. Rick?
Yeah, Marco says that this car is very sensitive to the track temperature. As the track heats up, he says it's going to be dicier. Now, just a little while ago, he was saying that the car is having some understeer, and they're going to have to deal with that. Doc?
And here is Scott Dixon making his first stop of the day. Now, in carb day, in the very first pit stop, he had a wheel gun that failed. They're hoping they don't have the same problem today. They asked Dixon, do you want any wing changes? He said, no, the car is neutral, leave it alone. We'll put 4 tires and get it completely full of fuel. Waiting on fuel, got to get completely full, and now he is full and away.
J.R. Hildebrand, Alex Tagliani, Tristan Vautier also on and off the pit lane on that lap.
These first pit stops are so important for the crew. They have to get that first one out of their system.
Here is Kanaan in after fighting for the lead for most of this race. Doc?
Almost a carbon copy of his teammate Scott Dixon. They asked Kanaan, do you want to change? He quickly said no, changed nothing. Wanted to come in, put 4 tires on, make sure they get it full of fuel. Being very deliberate on these early stops. Not to make a mistake, not to drop a wheel nut, not to have an issue in the pits. Kanaan waiting for fuel, making sure to get it completely full, and he's away, uneventful.
Those 2 pit stop times between the 2 Ganassi cars were almost the same, within a tenth of a second.
Here's Simon Pagenaud, who took over the lead after Dixon and Kanaan pitted. Rick?
Yeah, Simon Pagenaud says the car is understeering just a little bit, so the plan coming into this pit stop was just to make a minor wing adjustment. Kyle Moyer is the strategist for this team, and I talked to him on Friday. I said, is the car any good? He goes, oh yeah. And it wasn't just the words, it was the way he said it. He feels he's got a potential winner. They make that little wing adjustment, and he's going to get out of here. Doc?
Elio Castroneves, who told us was being very patient at the beginning of this race. No adjustments, routine stop, 4 tires, just like they were on carb day. And by the way, they won the pit stop competition. This is the best team this weekend on pit road.
Will Power took over the lead when Pagenaud pitted. Now last year's series champion is coming down the pit lane. There he is, wearing that champion's number 1. And headed all the way to the turn 1 end of the pit road. Doc?
And Will Power said he had never felt as comfortable as he has been this year at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Something about finally feeling good about being an oval track racer. He comes down pit road. They've warned him about speeding. Speed limit is 60 miles an hour. They will go to work. They plug in for fuel. Air jack in the back of the car. All 4 tires are on, waiting on the fuel, and he is signaled to leave. Will Power making his first stop of the day.
So that cycles Juan Pablo Montoya to the race lead. He pitted 3 times under that opening caution after getting the damage to the right rear wheel guard and having to change the rear wing. So he's got about 10 more laps of fuel on board than these other people who had not pitted yet. Joseph Newgarden and Charlie Kimball there in that confrontation. Was that your word?
Yeah,
Scott?
it's confrontation, yeah. Sometimes you don't mind it if it's on the last lap, last corner, but might be a bit too soon for that.
A few more drivers to pit to complete this cycle. Ryan Briscoe is on pit road. Jack Hawksworth, Simona Di Silvestro, again, having pitted under the long yellow, can go a bit farther on fuel.
This is going to be a late pass.
Number 6, J.R. Hildebrand.
And he made it.
Pass was on Charlie Kimball, and Charlie's a very good competitor, race winner. And there's Montoya.
So there is Juan Pablo Montoya.
Hit this lap. Hit this lap.
Getting the call.
Now from 225 miles an hour going to straightaways and getting down to 60 miles an hour is an art. Watch him here. He'll stay low, come in, make sure the wheels are on the inside of that white diagonal line, otherwise you'll get a penalty. And now he's got to get to 60 miles an hour.
We will do the wing.
And you heard on the radio there, no, he slides past his marks, and it's over the air hose. This is going to cost him a lot of time. They were talking to him about making a front wing change, and he couldn't get it stopped. Oh, after such a great comeback, now he's still got time. That was only a half turn. But that is the way that you lose time in the pits.
That is the way that you lose a 500.
So that could be a quarter distance on the front straightaway, 3 or 4 seconds lost like that. There's a lot of track time you have to make up when you have a stop like that.
So back to the race for the lead. Scott Dixon cycles up to the number 1 spot. Simon Pagenaud now between the 2 Ganassi cars. 22 there in second. Canan back in third.
And he's putting pressure on Dixon.
Well, he wants to lead. He's now with the top team in IndyCar racing, one of the top teams in the world. He said to me the other day, he says, this car is so nice here, and I'm so lucky to be driving for Roger Penske.
So after the opening lap crash and the secondary crash, we're clean through 100 miles from there. Scott Dixon out in front for the moment. The race for the lead at the 99th Indianapolis 500-mile race between Scott Dixon in the red car and the white and red car of Simon Pagenaud. Our telecast today presented by Firestone. We're just across 100 miles of this event. Tomorrow night, Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals on ESPN. Golden State going to try and close out the Rockets in Houston. 9 o'clock Eastern on ESPN, and watch ESPN. Did you see Steph Curry go off last night for 40 points? Coverage starts at 8 with Kia NBA Countdown, then Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals. Golden State and Houston.
So what Pagenaud is doing right now, he is taking all the notes he can on how Scott Dixon's car is performing, and in the process of doing that, he's using less fuel. And by less fuel, if they come in at the same time, his fuel stop will be faster than Scott Dixon's. So he's putting as much information as he can into his head as to how close he can run behind Dixon, working towards those last 5 laps, Scott.
They call him the professor, and they always say on that team, everybody has different quality. Juan Montoya probably drives a little harder and stands up in the wheel a little bit more, and certainly Simon is more the quiet guy in the team right now, and they nicknamed him the professor.
You see lap traffic just ahead for these race leaders. Now, during the pit stops, we showed you Juan Pablo Montoya overshooting things and crossing that air hose. He lost 5 seconds for the time to back up, and here's what it cost him on the racetrack.
You know how long it would take you to catch up to that, Scott? If you were running, you'd have to run 2 miles an hour faster than somebody for probably 4 or 5 laps to do that.
You extend yourself, you push yourself out of the comfort zone, your car out of the comfort zone, and you risk going and slicing against the wall. So something Montoya generally doesn't do because such an experienced competitor, including in Formula One.
The race stewards reviewed Montoya running over that air hose. He was given a warning, which was the penalty for that. Also, Simona Di Silvestro, was given a warning for avoidable contact for the under caution incident between she and Montoya earlier.
And maybe he was a little bit frustrated because of the problems he had at the beginning of the race, which is understandable. When somebody runs into the back of you under yellow, that's not something you'd expect.
So Scott Dixon leads. The 3-time champion of the Verizon Indycar Series and 2008 winner of this race. Dixon said he thought that any one of 15 of the 33 starters had a chance to win, but he was confident, though not overconfident, in his team and his car.
This is the first time Scott has had traffic in front of him. He has almost 8 cars that he's going to have to get by. We'll see how his car handles in traffic, and we'll see how well Scott can stick behind him, because this really gets tricky because the air is really, really turbulent at the end of that line. And he gets by the first one. No, he doesn't. Now, he had to come out of the throttle there, so we'll see if Pagenaud gets a run on him coming out of 4.
But smartly, see, a veteran knows that he probably could not make the pass completely, so he'll take his foot out of the gas. Now, if that was the last couple of laps and you've got a competitor behind you like Simon Pagenaud, then he would probably risk it, but there's no risk-reward ratio. Remember we talked at the beginning of the show about sometimes it's difficult to get up and get that draft and get the pass completed by the time you get to the turn. Drivers talked about that, and I think that's what we're seeing right now Scott Dixon struggling with.
And there's just not enough gain. Why risk making a mistake when you're in the lead trying to pass a car that you're lapping at this point in the race?
Now, both of them will try, or just one get through. See? Just one.
That was brilliant. He waited right to the last minute so Pagenaud could not come by with him. He's going to pass him. Oh, he's passing him in the middle of 4.
That's Tristan Vautier in the 18 car, former Rookie of the Year in the Verizon IndyCar Series. Now Kanaan going after Pagenaud for second and still trying to deal with Vautier in the 18.
And Vautier has no interest at all in letting these cars get by him. If they're going to do it, they're going to have to earn it. If Simon Pagenaud is any closer to Kanaan, he'll be sitting in his lap.
Here's Pagenaud looking inside, turn 3, he'll go through.
And Kanaan says go. There's not enough room here for both of us.
Yeah, he didn't make it easy for him because you took him down the grass mid-straight, but he's a veteran. He left room going in the turn.
But look at the gap Dixon has put after these two, second and third, got caught behind this now lap car, the 18.
Alan, you don't think that was by design, do you?
Opportunistic.
Remember, everybody is working on their plan for those last 10 laps.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree completely.
So that was probably plan C. If there's traffic, this is what I'm going to try to do.
And still the leader now with side-by-side lap cars ahead of him.
They get by the Pippa man, driving the Susan G. Komen car. Very bright, very easy to see, doing a great job out here. She comes out about once a year to compete at Indianapolis.
This is very tricky stuff because you're relying on the driver that you're trying to pass to acknowledge that you're there and give you enough room. And sometimes they're so busy with their own line that they can't.
Now Sato is 3 laps down to the race leader. He just followed Kanaan and got around, or separated Kanaan from Simon Pagenaud.
And give his ABC team a lot of credit for having the parts ready, measured correctly, bolted back on, and now the car's out there and seems to be going quite well.
There's Kanaan to the outside of Pippa Man.
Very good driving from Pippa Man to let him go by.
So the 2013 winner, Tony Kanaan, running second, Doc.
Yeah, I just talked to Chip Ganassi. You saw Tony being passed about a lap and a half ago. Tony has called in, said, got to have a half a turn of front wing. Developed a significant understeer on exit, meaning when he turns the car trying to leave the corner, it will not turn.
So the track is changing, Scott. It's getting hotter and hotter, and the car's balance is changing. So all the drivers have to start thinking, what do I need to do? But don't correct it too far, because you don't want to go from a car that's pushing to a car that's loose.
And it also tells you, as we see Scott Dixon now doing a great job working through traffic, it also tells you that he's probably used all his cockpit adjustments and the car is still not responding, so that's why they're asking for changes. But important not to push the car too hard. He'll take the right front tire off of it and then have a huge understeer for the remaining part of his fuel load.
Scott has taken everybody to school on this first group of traffic that they had to approach and get by. It's amazing how fast he cut through all that. And the guy who's right behind him is who? His teammate. So these Ganassi cars work in traffic.
I'd like to go back and see what that was that went under the left front tire. That it looked like maybe a rag that was on another car. But in an open cockpit car, when you see something go under the tire, that's got to concern you as a driver, doesn't it?
It does, and if it gets in the way of the radiator, Scott, you're in trouble because the temperatures will just start creeping up.
You see him working the steering wheel there, that turbulent air off the car in front. You heard him get off the gas. As we rode with him just a moment ago, you saw him take his left hand, push the button. It's either for the drink bottle, taking a drink of water, or possibly rating back to the team, telling what's going on with the car.
Now this will cost him probably 4 miles an hour on this lap, and you can be sure that Kanaan will have closed the gap because of the fact he couldn't pass that car turning into one.
Watch this and watch the right side of your screen, left side of your screen. What is that? So Coletti's car collects that, kicks it up in the air. Looks like just a empty chip bag or something. All right.
Somebody's lost their Tostitos, Doritos, or whatever those things are.
And the bag's crunch was magnified under the tire of a race car. Never mind. Back to the Brickyard after this from your ABC station.
The Indianapolis 500 telecast, presented by Firestone. Brought to you by Chevrolet, find new roads, and Royal Purple. Watch Royal Purple on the track at the Indy 500 and check us out at royalpurple.com.
After the opening lap crash and caution, we are green through 155 miles. The 99th Indianapolis 500-mile race. Scott Dixon has done most of the leading today in that red number 9 car. There's the gap, first, second, and third. Dixon there, Simon Pagenaud behind him in the white and red car, and Tony Kanaan right there in the blue car. Coming up on another round of green flag pit stops as we clip off this race despite the first 11 laps being run under the yellow at an average, trouble, a car in trouble and into the wall. That is Brian Clausen.
It is so difficult when you don't do a lot of races in these cars to turn up at Indy.
Clausen, the short tracker, carrying the hopes of all the local dirt trackers, making his second appearance in the 500. And his race ends with his car into the wall. And you see the safety team already there.
Now watch this, the 88 of Brian Clausen. As we roll through here, just watch. He's already a little bit high. I think what he was trying to do was trying to give some space to the cars behind because he's been off pace just a little bit. Once you get into that gray section, you lose all grip there. There's no black, there's no rubber, and then he just loses grip, goes up into the wall. But give him credit. He's a guy that comes here once a year. He's only been here twice, and you know, he is a two-time winner of the National Sprint Car Championship, and I watched a little bit of him on television this past winter knowing that he was coming here again, and those guys can drive cars with high horsepower, no grip sideways. I mean, I'm really impressed with his talent.
Absolutely. He was just in the wrong place. You need to be very egotistical when you're going around turn 4. You don't give anybody any room. That line is yours. If they want to, they can pass on the outside. Every time I see that, I remember Schechter, who drove for us, was leading the 500 with 10 laps to go. That's a photocopy of what happened there. And he had the 500 in his hands.
Yeah. And in this situation here, just like you're talking in that, if you're trying to give somebody some space, it looked like Brian Clausen was trying to do, you're going around here at 225 miles an hour in the turn, so he was probably doing 215, 210 mid-turn when it all goes wrong. You can't catch the car. The right front starts to push, it starts to loosen itself, and you feel lightness in the steering wheel, and then you have no control. The car goes in the wall.
No room to be Mr. Nice Guy.
All right, great to see Brian climb out of that car after a few minutes. And so we'll see Clausen go to the medical center for the mandatory checkover by the doctors. And tough to see Brian Clausen out of the race. Now, pit road's still closed, but it's going to get very busy. You see all the crews out there and ready to go to work. It's a long pit lane, but it's not a wide one.
Now, as you see, Dario, he's going to end up coming into his pit lane looking to where he wants to go. See that it's only 6.5 feet wide for your car. You're trying to just really get it in there. Now, he got hit from behind and spun the car completely around, ended up damaging his front wing.
What you have to add is he's going 60 miles an hour when he has to decide to. He can't slow down 300 yards beforehand. You have to get it all done very quickly. We see the pit stops being 8 seconds, Scott, but what we really time is from the moment you're in the pits to the moment you leave the pits. That's the amount of time that really counts in a pit stop.
It puts a lot of pressure on the crew. They train throughout the week. Physical fitness trainers are always in the shops. The shops sometimes have their own physical fitness centers, but certainly these guys practice pit stops each and every week, especially leading up to the Indy 500.
And just to make sure there's no confusion, that video was not Scott Dixon. That was Dario Franchitti from a couple of years ago in the 2012 race. So Dixon leads the field around to the opening of pit lane. Pits are declared open. Simon Pagenaud runs second. Rick?
Well, Simon Pagenaud may have had a little bit of trouble with the traffic, but he is having absolutely no problems with the car. In fact, his strategist, Kyle Moore, is on the radio saying, right now we're in a situation where you can pass anybody out on the track. The car is exactly where we want it. A little while ago, they actually told him, you can take the lead if you want, meaning he's been hanging back and saving fuel to get it exactly the way he wants it. Right now, nothing major planned in the way they're going to make this stop, but obviously, they want him back out there as quickly as possible. Doc?
And down below them, Tony Kanaan, you heard him say that we have an understeer on exit. They're going to do a 1/4 turn of front wing. That's Kanaan, the middle picture, to help the understeer. On the bottom of your screen, our leader, Scott Dixon. No problem with the car, but Dixon says he has a problem with water being sprayed on his visor by his brake tube. He's going through a lot of turns. The race off of pit road, and Dixon will get beat off of pit road.
That was awesome, guys.
So Simon Pagenaud off the pit lane first as the Penske team gets their driver out in front. He didn't go for the lead on the track. His team got it for him, though, on pit road. Back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, wrapping up the second caution of this 99th edition of the 500-mile race. Our telecast today presented by Firestone. Simon Pagenaud is the new leader on the exchange of stops. Reminder to download the IndyCar 15 mobile app and get live streams from in-car cameras like this one and more from Verizon. This camera riding on board Scott Dixon's car.
I've got something funky going on with my visor, the right side of it. I'm not sure if it was the drink tube, kept smashing into it, putting rubber on it, and I keep pulling tear off, so I'm running out of them pretty quick.
And they talked about the fact that what Scott Goodyear said a moment ago, maybe handing him a cloth to keep in the car if he keeps getting water on his visor from the drink tube, because visibility obviously very important here. And he just said a moment ago that one of the pads in the cockpit there on the head surround behind his helmet may have come out because he can put his helmet back further backwards now than he could when he climbed in the car. Now that won't be a problem safety-wise, but his head is going to move around in the car. And now you understand why these guys have got to be incredibly physically fit, but still a little bit concerning the fact that he can move the head back further than he wants to.
So something funky going on there on Scott Dixon's car, and something we'll keep an eye on from Doc. Now, Ryan Hunter-Reay and Justin Wilson had just pitted under the green just before the yellow came out. So they've just been waved around the pace car, but that's why you'll see Hunter-Reay and Wilson way at the back of the field, Jan.
Yes, and things have not been going so well for Ryan Hunter-Reay, and you documented it. They were trying their best to come onto pit road. They made a downforce change at the rear of the car and the front and just missed it by 1 lap. There were a few others like J.R. Hildebrand actually had the tires out when the caution came out, so they were safe. But unfortunately, that's one of the reasons why people run around and save some fuel so you don't get caught by a caution like Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Because of some people like that pitting just before the yellow came out, and the yellow flag bunching up the field, look who's all the way back up into the top 10. Juan Pablo Montoya. Remember, got hit and had to pit to replace the rear wing after the opening lap's crash. Was all the way back in 30th place, lost the time on the next pit stop when he slid through and got over the top of the air hose, an incident that the stewards investigated and issued a warning for. And
he's
now
right back on pace again.
He is right in the mix.
He will be fun as always to watch.
Green, 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 green.
White line with all 4 tires.
Is that Munoz?
Oh, I bet you it is. He loves it down there.
For the lead, Dixon around Pagenaud.
And Pagenaud's about to get attacked by Kanaan coming out of 4. Actually, no. Kanaan's about to get attacked by Power.
Absolutely. What a great run he did.
Looking inside.
Long way back.
It's not going to be easy. That's what he says to Will Power, the #1 machine.
Kanaan putting the squeeze on there.
There are so many hot dog wrappers and plastic bags coming out of 2. Coming out of 1.
More trash, I think, than I've seen in years. Here
For
we go again.
Pagenaud after Dixon in 3.
Now Dixon can learn how his car works behind Pagenaud's. Kanaan's going to want to see what Pagenaud looks like.
So close these guys get with the front nose to the rear of the car.
And right through for the race lead. Got them both in one straightaway. Tony Kanaan, 3rd to 1st.
Kanaan is the king of restarts and passes. You think he was trying to send him a message there, Scott?
I don't know, but this place erupted because out of our broadcast window, everybody stood up and cheered for him.
That 1/4 a turn of front wing that they put in his car is like putting 3 grains of salt in your soup. That's such a small adjustment.
But makes a huge difference.
So Kanaan, Dixon, Pagenaud, Power, Castroneves. There's Power on Pagenaud, and behind them, Charlie Kimball on Castroneves, the 83 car, the young Californian, rolling toward the front.
And right now, he happens to have the fastest car on the track. He did a lap at 225 miles an hour. He wants to get in the lead group. A new player up front is Power. Let's see how he does. I love this camera angle.
See if Dixon goes after Kanaan here.
Now, when it's your teammate, you could hear Kanaan coming out of the throttle. If they have a run on you, you let them go by, then you get behind them. And if you do that multiple times, you leapfrog and you find a way to put distance and the cars are behind you.
Now, remember in our pre-race show how we had Elio Castroneves and Ryan Hunter-Reay take you back through the events of those last 6 laps in last year's race, how dramatic they were and the tactics. Well, think about now Scott's point when we started the telecast about the draft kicking in later in the straightaway and how all these drivers right now are gaining the education for what they're going to have to do to try and win the race in the last laps. Not just what they're going to have to do to take the lead, but in the case of a move like this, if someone gets by you, what you have to do to keep your momentum up and stay close enough to them to put the counter on.
You are 100% right. They're building up their plan for those last 5 laps. Everything will come down to that. And if you have a teammate around you, it becomes a lot easier.
He's going to try in the high side. Everybody's taking the other car down to the white line, down the backstretch. Now that's perfectly legal if you come out of turn 2 and start to take your car down on the middle of the straight. So you watch Tony Kanaan now starting to get a run past his teammate Scott Dixon. And that was earlier than before. Remember, he mentioned it. Eddie, you mentioned that change of the front wing. It looked like his car's handling much better in 3 and 4, so he had the momentum to get out of the turn and make that pass complete before he got down to turn 1.
And right now, Dixon can use his toe.
So Will Power running third. Black and white car there. Last year's Verizon Indycar Series champion. Remember, he started second, middle of the row 1, but got quickly shuffled back in the opening couple of laps. This is the highest that he's run since the drop of full green flag racing.
He did not look that strong coming off of 4.
All this racing we're looking at right now, this leapfrogging as you call it, Eddie, they're averaging 222 miles an hour, so probably about 226 to 228 going into the turns. Got to trust the competitor that you're racing against all the time. It's a little easier with teammates, and here we go. Simon now trying to go around the outside of his teammate. Will Power gets that one completed. Now these guys are on the same team, but don't forget that they've had many run-ins over the past couple of years to a point where they stopped talking to each other. And then Simon became a free agent at the end of the year, got hired by Penske, and now
they have to talk to each other.
The captain forces you to get along, doesn't he?
There is a lot of very strong characters in that team, but the strongest character is the captain's.
So top 4, Kanaan, Dixon, Pagenaud, Power, then Charlie Kimball up to 5th, the 30-year-old from California who started the race in 14th and has a long family history here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, having a really solid run, Rick.
Yes, a very solid run. He was happy coming out of Carb Day, felt they needed a few adjustments. A couple things to think about. On that first pit stop, they made some adjustments, and he said it made the car even better. He felt he had a good car, made it even better. The other thing to remember, his team was the runner-up in the pit stop competition. They are already proving that they can do a fast pit stop, and that helped move him up as well.
So Charlie Kimball into the top 5. The Stanford fan whose dad graduated from there, but he deferred acceptance to there because he wanted to pursue racing. He's pursuing a win in the Indy 500 today, but he's got to overcome the 2013 winner Tony Kanaan to get it.
The Indianapolis 500 telecast, presented by Firestone. The highly skilled engineers that design Firestone race tires work alongside those who design the tires for your vehicle. Find your tire at firestonetire.com.
Just across 200 miles of the Indianapolis 500-mile race on a spectacular 83-degree afternoon on this Memorial Day here in Indianapolis. And the 2013 winner, Tony Kanaan, is leading what's been a very spirited fight for the #1 spot for these 200 miles so far. Kanaan and Simon Pagenaud there locked up in the top 2 spots for the moment. Reminder, next weekend, the Verizon Indycar Series heading to the Motor City, and we'll have coverage of the duel in Detroit both Saturday and Sunday from the 14-turn road course on Belle Isle in downtown Detroit, 3:30 Eastern both days here on ABC. Will Power after Scott Dixon, and Power picks up 3rd place.
I think a lot of these passes are happening in turn 1, guys, because there's quite a fair amount of headwind coming down the front stretch. So that car in front is having a difficult time punching a hole in the air. So the advantage is to the car behind. So that might be taken into account close to the end of the race, because a lot of times, as you and I have done many times, Eddie, you get down to the end of the race, you're trying to pass the car in front in turn 3 to surprise him so he doesn't have a shot at you going down the front stretch. But we may see some passes happening here in turn 1. A little bit more than we anticipated, because that windsock, and there it is right there on top of the scoring pylon. Now, as a driver, you're looking at that windsock each time you come down the front stretch to see how you're going to maneuver your car going into the straight or down from the straight into the turn. And as Tony's now going down the back stretch, there's a windsock on the top of the grandstands at the exit of 3. He looks at that at the same time.
Follow up on the second caution that came back at lap 64. Brian Clausen checked and released from the Infield Medical Center. Good to see for Clausen. 28 of the 33 starters on the lead lap. Race for the lead's been good. It's been hard to dip back into the field much, but let's get you a Carfax up to speed and start with Dr. Jerry Punch.
Yeah, let's talk about Tony Kanaan, the man up front. Tony loves to lead. He loves to be aggressive, especially here at Indy. You heard us comment that he had an understeer, meaning the car would not turn on exit. That quarter turn of wing they put in helped it, but now Tony has complained that they have an understeer on entry in the corner, which is creating a little bit of a problem. Rick.
Oh, right behind him is Simon Pagenaud, who at this point in the game is simply playing cat and mouse. They feel the car is so good, they don't want to lead. They want to sit in the back, save some fuel. I can tell you just a few moments ago, when Will Power made the pass on Simon, Simon was not happy with him. In fact, wanted it to be known in the team that that was a problem. A little earlier, Kyle Moyer said, you can go ahead and pass for the lead, but apparently he still wants to sit back there and not do that just now. Doc?
Behind them, you look talking about Will Power. Now, it is a very warm day, some 10 degrees warmer than it was here on Friday in the final practice. And Will Power's complaint has been an oversteer, meaning the car has been loose. They made a wing adjustment, a quarter turn out to help the oversteer. But now he says we have an understeer. They may have gone too far. The car will not turn coming up off the corner. Behind him is Scott Dixon, the pole sitter, who has led the bulk of this race thus far. They made no adjustments on Dixon on that previous pit stop, looking at his visor that had water issues and a pad behind his helmet. He has not complained of anything. One believes that he may be biding his time, looking at some fuel numbers. Rick?
Oh, behind him is Charlie Kimball, the Californian. Remember, he is part of the Ganassi team, running similar setups in terms of what those cars ahead of him have. And more importantly, he's just doing a great job today. He's had one victory under his belt in IndyCar and doing fine today. Says the car is just a little bit of understeer in his steer, and is hoping there's something they can take care of just with tire pressure on the next stop. Doc?
Elio Castroneves, he said, my experience will allow me to adjust to changing conditions. The track is getting warmer, getting greasier. He has not called for any major adjustments on the car, opting to basically ride. And he said, try to stay just in the top 5 or just outside to be comfortable with the car here where he is just prior to 100 laps. Jan.
Juan Pablo Montoya saw how close he got to the back of Castroneves, but he's been complaining on the radio of understeer. In other words, the car's not turning as well as it should. You may wonder, why did he not get a penalty when he ran over the air hose? They've relaxed the rules this year. If you run over an air hose and the crew pushes it back, you merely get a warning, so he still has a shot, Rick.
And behind him is Graham Rahal. You might remember at the beginning of the broadcast, we talked about the difference between the Chevys and the Hondas, and that is the lead Honda right there, that car of Graham Rahal. He had a vibration a little bit earlier that was a concern, but when they changed the tires, they were able to get rid of that. Beyond that, he's happy and comfortable with the way he's running. Right behind him, Marco Andretti, the next Honda. So far, they say he's just riding around. They're still working on exactly what they want to do to the car, but they've kind of understood at this point in the game, their goal is to catch up to the next Honda. They want to be the lead Honda in this pack. Jan?
Joseph Newgarden, of course, is trying to make amends for a crash that he had. They've been making adjustments on their pit stops. Another one who was very fortunate that the caution came out as his teammate Hildebrand had made a stop as well. So they've been working on the front, adding front wing for Joseph Newgarden. He's getting stronger and stronger as they tune in the car, Alan.
5 different drivers have led, 14 lead changes, 2 cautions, 1 on the opening lap when Sage Karam got put in the middle of a 3-wide situation into turn 1 and crashed. Sato and Hunter-Reay, the other 2 drivers around him. And then at lap 64, Brian Clausen crashed in turn number 4. Those are the only 2 yellows we've had so far in the race. Closing in on halfway in the 99th Indianapolis 500-mile race. The pit crews will get busy again very soon at the Brickyard. Almost to halfway in the Indianapolis 500 for 2015. Our telecast today presented by Firestone. Tony Kanaan, the 2013 winner, out in front while the next wave of pit stops gets underway. Last year's winner, Ryan Hunter-Reay, is in.
Yeah, Yes, and unfortunately for Ryan Hunter-Reay, he's not getting the kind of fuel economy that he wants because they've had to add a lot of downforce, so he hits pit road early. Not a problem unless you get caught by a yellow like he did earlier. Just over 9.2 seconds for Hunter-Reay. Again, he's going to need to get this car faster and find a way to not pit so early.
Sebastian Bourdais also on and off the pit road under that last lap of green.
And to follow up on something that Jan just mentioned, that Ryan Hunter-Reay needs a little bit more downforce on the car, so that means a little bit more wing angle to put pressure on the wings to give us some more grip, but he certainly used more fuel.
Jan?
Joseph Newgarden taking the opportunity to make a stop. We watched Tony Kanaan at the same time. So we'll wait for Kanaan to get to Dr. Jerry Punch.
Yeah, Tony Kanaan complained of an understeer, and again, is an understeer more on exit than entry. He's going to make another adjustment on the wing, and also going to make an air pressure change on Tony Kanaan because he said the car is starting to move around quite a bit on the racetrack.
Very efficiently done by the Ganassi team. You see that you can change tires more quickly than you can refuel the car. So the fueling is key unless you get into one of those late race situations where you don't need the full fuel load. Montoya to Jan.
And this time he does stop it right on the mark, so they will be able to make quick service for him. Watch the front wing. They're planning on adding some, and they wait till the last moment. It's only a half turn. Well, Paulo Montoya, watch out. There's Graham Rahal, but he slots in right behind.
Meanwhile, you've got Marco Andretti coming in. Once again, as we said earlier, they haven't had a specific problem with the car. They just haven't had it to where they want it to be. Marco Andretti said, when you get right down to it, this is two different races. The first half and the second half. We're just about to enter the second half. That's where they need to get this together and get the speed that they need to win this race.
Simon Patrick.